Have you ever noticed that when you want to be treated like an adult, doing so comes with some rather depressing trade-offs? Well, that's what Lincoln found out in the episode I'm going to talk about today. So join me as I, SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, bring you another retro review from past seasons of The Loud House. Cue the intro! Today's episode is A Tale of Two Tables. In this episode, Lincoln wants to prove he's mature enough to sit at the adult dinner table and leave the kiddie table once and for all, but it turns out the adult table is not as great as he had thought. Since I'm reviewing this episode a few years after the original air date, sometimes I forget there even were two separate dinner tables because everyone starts sitting together in the dining room following this episode. But anyway, I'll start by saying the story is kinda relatable since my family used to and still have separate tables for kids and adults whenever it comes to holiday dinners. I know it's not exactly a one-for-one with this episode since that kind of table setup is for regular dinners, but that's beside the point. You have to remember the Loud family has a lot of people, so you have to take into consideration when looking at the usual dinner arrangements. But yeah, Lincoln felt he was too old and mature to be eating with his little sisters and seeing them act very childish. Although I will say the bit with Lola pretending to be a French fry vampire was kinda cute. So Lincoln tries to prove to the older members of his family that he's just as grown up as them, thanks to Clyde trying to mentor him in what it means to be an adult. However, the entire learning to be a grown-up sequence with these two came off as bleh. Not only does Clyde's training come off as a little cringy by the use of cardboard cutouts of the Loud family, as well as how annoying it was for him to constantly blow an air horn every time Lincoln screwed up, but the rest of Lincoln's sisters don't even seem too concerned about what he's doing. Although, to be fair, if I were them, I wouldn't care too much to ask many questions either. And when you really think about it, couldn't Lincoln have figured out what it takes to be a grown-up without Clyde's help? I know many people have already made the same criticism, but this episode felt like it shoehorned Clyde into the plot just for the sake of having him there. Yeah, I know he says he's been at the grown-up table his whole life because he's an only child, but does that really make him an expert in this episode? Does this suggest this kid is more of an adult than Lincoln? I don't know, maybe, but it doesn't matter when watching other episodes. His maturity level is objectively no different than that of Lincoln's in most cases, but I digress. Either way, Lincoln is finally allowed to sit at the adult table, and he quickly finds out how boring and uneventful it is. He sees his younger sisters having a more enjoyable time and decides he wants to go back to how things were before. So he starts acting like an uncouth and immature child as his way of getting ejected from the adult table, and he once again joins his little sisters at their table. Even though I thought his attempt to get pushed back into the kitchen was a little unsettling, I have to say the ending where the older sisters joined the rest of their younger siblings at the kiddie table was really well done. Symbolically speaking, it helped to reinforce the underlying message to the story, which would be you shouldn't be in such a rush to grow up. You should enjoy being a kid for as long as you can, because once you're an adult, you can't act like an immature little kid anymore, especially at the dinner table. There's a certain image and responsibility that comes with being a grown-up, and that's the lesson Lincoln learned at the end. He felt he needed to grow up in a big hurry, and yet he didn't want to undertake any of the responsibilities that come with being a grown-up, thinking he could have it both ways when you really can't. But hey, even the parents can have a little dinner table fun like the kids with the whole "did you say peas" joke, so maybe some things can slide from time to time. Overall, this episode may average out to being merely okay, but the central messaging on learning to not rush through childhood and straight into adulthood was handled quite well and saved the episode from getting a lower score. No one is presented terribly, the pacing is a little slow but not too slow, and the fallout comes off as sweet. I say this because seeing the older sisters trying to rekindle their much younger days hits in a way that I, an adult reviewing this episode, can sympathize with greatly. I think we all yearn for the glory days of our childhood where things were fun and simple, so the ending had a nostalgic charm to it. The only other thing worth noting would be Lincoln's nightmare where he believes he can never go back to the kid table once he sits at the grown-up table. It was weird, a tad creepy, and seeing the parents with turkey heads was just, well, weird and a tad creepy. With that said, I give A Tale of Two Tables a 7.6 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of A Tale of Two Tables. So I gotta ask, what did you guys think of this episode? Sound off in the comments below, and be sure to click that subscribe button for more Loud House related content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.